Torah Abanan. V'hayu, right? It says, V'hayu adrima eila. It says, we say in Kriya Shema, Shal yikru l'mafreya. Advarim, Shal yikru l'mafreya advarim. You have to, everything has to be read in order. Al livavecha. Yachol te'akol parashat tzicha kavana. Talmud loimer. So this is the second, from this pasuk, that we say in Kriya Shema, V'hayu advarim ha'ela. These words, this asher noich nitam should be al vavecha, should be with kavana. So from here we learn that this part has to be b'kavana. Mikan ve'elech ein tzricha kavana. So pashtus the way the Gemara is learning it now. They used to say, you have to Shema Yisrael, kavana v'hafta eis, v'hayu advarim ha'ela. Also, that third pasuk should be b'kavana. All those three psukim b'kavana. To Laser Amlam Yikive Harei Oimer Asher Noikim Yitzavich Hayoyim Al Vavecha. But if the pasuk says, "Ayu Adrom Eila," let's say there's two. Yeah, pasuk says, "Ayu Adrom Eila Asher Noikim Yitzavich Hayoyim." So this whole paragraph that I'm commanding you today has to be al vavecha. It means the whole parsha of Yehafta. Okay, Rabbi said this point you have two shitas. The first shita says that the first two Shema al vavecha has to be with kavana, and the second shita says no, the entire parsha is Yehafta. We have not yet referred to Vayim Shemaya. Rashi that does not require kavana. Now we're up to Rabbi side to the beginning of Yud Gimel and Beis. Omer Rabbi Bar Bachana. Again, here we're going to deal with another few different shitas about which part of Kriya Shema is kavana. Now, kavana, by the way, here doesn't, not to be confused with Aleph, with mitzvah tzvichas kavana. Kavana rather means kavana to understand pirush hamilim, to understand to be focused on the words that you're saying when you say Shema. Okay. So we're up to the top of the Amud. We're up to the top of the Amud. Amar Rabbi Barchan. Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Halacha k'mikiva. The halacha is k'mikiva that you must say the parsha of Yehafta with kavanah. Now we'll see that we're going to have other opinions. It's not really necessarily the bottom line halacha. Ikta Masli Yahad Tanya. There are those that learn this statement on the following brayso. You have to mechavit. What's ma'akev is the perek rishon, which means v'hafta. And so it's the same thing. Effectively, it's the same thing. That the first perek v'hafta has to have kavanah. Again, we don't say that's halacha. We don't actually pass like that. We'll see in the continuation of this. Tani idich. We learned in the brayso. It says, "V'hayu advorim ha'ela." Right? We say in Kriya Shema. We're towards the top of Yud Gimel on base. Okay. Sorry. Tani idich. V'hayu shel yikra l'mafreya. Do not read it out of order. All psukim must be read in order, otherwise you're not yotze. We learn from the pasuk al levavecha. Rabbi Yosef told him ad kan mitzvah kavana. So up until the pasuk al levavecha, right, the beginning of after we say al levavecha. So that has to be with kavana. Mikan ve'elech, but from that we can also infer that the continuation of creation, mikan ve'elech, mitzvah's kriya. The mitzvah is to read it, not necessarily do you need kavana. And Rabbi Yoshia Oimer ad kan mitzvah's kriya. Now he says a little strange thing. We're going to analyze this in a moment. Ad kan mitzvah's kriya, mikan ve'elech, mitzvah's kavana. Opposite. As the v'hayim shamaya is that we're starting to jump to the next parsha. V'hayim shamaya is dafka kavana, which is what we'll see. So now we're going to analyze it. Okay, Rabbi said we're holding here about a third down in Daf Yud Gimel Beis. Okay, Rabbi Yeshua said we're talking about the two parshas. The first parsha is is a Shema, and then there's with Shema is Ve'hafta, and then there's Vayim Shemoya. So Yoshi says that Adkan, which is Kriya, sorry, not Yoshi. Zutra says first is Mitzvah's Kavana, and then afterwards is Kriya. So the Hafta requires Kavana. So now the Gemara analyzes that point. Ma'ishtam mikan ve'edak Mitzvah's Kriya, Dichsiv l'daber. Why is it that the Parashas Vayim Shemoya is the Kriya? It almost implies that you have to actually read and pronounce the words of Vayim Shemoya, whereas the mitzvahs, the hafta, is enough just to contemplate the words. It's kavana. So why is that? It doesn't make any sense. You should say the words. So Moshe says, you're right, of course. Mitzvahs kavana. Ukriya. Of course, it requires reading it. The parsha of hafta requires reading it as well as kavana. Ukriya. Kind of elach kriya kavana, but v'hayim shemoya, the obligation is to read it. Mitzvahs, the having kavana is not a requirement in the parsha of v'hayim shemoya. Okay, ma'ishna ad kan mitzvahs kavana ukriya. So the Gemara asks that. Well, why is that? Why is it that the hafta is mitzvah kriya? Why? You know why? Because it's al levavecha v'dibal the bom. So the Torah requires both. It should be in your heart, kavana, and reading. So Hasanami al levavechem in the parsha of Shemoya, it also uses very similar terminologies. That there should be al levavechem and should be the daber bom. So the word says no. There it says a similar statement, but that means something else over there. Ahumi boile the krib yitzchok. The samtem is dvorai ele. Tzrichas yasime keneged that for that word, for those words of al levavechem doesn't mean it's kavana. It means that's happens to tell me ukshartam the ois ayadechu. It happens to tell me where the samtim is dvorim eila al levavechem. That's where you place your tefillin. You put your tefillin over here, right? Neged the leiv. So so it's not telling me kavana there. Okay. Now we're going to go back. We have to analyze Rav Yosha. Rav Yosha said a very interesting thing. He said the opposite almost. He said the kavana is in the Vayim Shemoya. Interesting enough. So how does that work? So he said the opposite. The parshas you have to have kriya. But the parshas of Vayim Shemoya is kavana. So what's the shot? Because in the parsha of Vayim Shemoya it says why wouldn't you? You think you need kavanah and v'yafta? No. Ad kam it's kriya v'kavanah v'kan v'elech. You're right. Of course, it's given v'yafta. He also agrees v'yafta needs kavanah. There's a lot of shita saying that you have to have proper kavanah in the first parsha of Kafta. Now again, by the way, we don't paskin like that. We paskin Shema needs kavanah, but we'll see that in a minute in the hemshech. But why is he saying so? So we're saying, so what's from Yesha? So yes, v'yafta needs kavana. Of mikan ve'elech. From there on, kavana below kriya. You don't need kriya. You need only kavana. And the Gemara will explain the why, and I'll explain exactly what that means. So ma'ishtad kam it says kriya v'kavana dichsiv alavavchem d'matabom. Hasanami dichsiv alavavchem d'dabrabom. So here also. Here also it says alav avachem the daber. So he also really mentions both kavana and kriya as well. What's the difference in the parsha of V'hayim Shemoya? So my answer is no. Hahu b'divrei tereksiv. There it's an instruction. It's not telling you say these words v'dibarta bum like we said in V'yafta. Here it's saying the daber bum that you have to teach your children. Here the context is different, saying that there's a special mitzvah to teach Torah to your children, to speak the words of Torah. So what does it mean? He's trying to say ultimately that the parsha of Shemoya doesn't require saying out each word clearly, halachically, pronunciating each word as does the first parsha of Yehafta, according to the Shita of Rabbi Yosha. Again, we don't parse like Rabbi Yosha. We parse in the first pasuk Shema, Baruch Shem also needs kavana, and the rest of Kriya Shema does require pronunciation. Tana Rabbanan. Now we're going to see it here a little bit now. Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Melech Haolam. Ad kan tzrichas kavanas alev the Remeir. And Amar Rava halacha Remeir. So this is really the bottom line halacha, that Shema requires kavana. So in other words, a person, when he says Shema, you must have kavana. Meaning, what's kavana mean? Kavana means you're focused on the meaning of the words that you're saying. Besides actually saying the words, you're focused. This is the kuva. Kavana, we pass on the halacha also, that Baruch Shein Kavod Malchuso also requires kavana. But if you have to, does not. Okay. Tanya, or up to Tanya Sumchas. Everybody say Tanya Sumchas. Tanya says, first you want to have a long life? Very easy solution. If you marry echod, and Ishtama means you marich and you concentrate and you say properly, so this will give a person long life. Because he'll be with Hashem, will be with him. He's makir Hashem echad. Now, there's a part which should be long and a part which shouldn't. The dalid is really the punchline, is really the long part. Now, it shouldn't come at the expense of pronunciation of the ches, because sometimes you got to get your lips to move a certain way. So if you're marich on the dalid, it sometimes makes it hard to pronunciate the komets, the chod of the ches. So don't swallow the ches. Okay. Omer Rashi. Sorry. Rabbi Yirmiyah Avi Yosef Kamei the B'chir Ba'abba. Chazid Avi Marach Tuvi. So I think it means B'chir Ba'abba saw Rabbi Yirmiyah is like really a long echad he's saying over here. It's like, wow, taking a long time. So he says to him, Amalei Kevandam Lichte Lamala Ulamata Ulaba Ruchas Rayim Tulo. In other words, it says, you see again, you see here, his criticism is really on that your time it takes to say should be linked to the necessary kavana. So what's the kavana? That HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Lamala Lamata, he's in the four Ruchas, Hashem Echad. Everything in the world is from Hashem. That's the kavana. So once you do that, you're okay. You don't have to sit there, singing the Dalid, more than you have to. So what are you doing? Tulot Tzrichas. Yeah. Amar Rav Nasser bar Yeukfa. Amar Rav Yudah. Al levavecha. Ba'mida. It should be in a midah. Now what does that mean? Midah doesn't mean here not to be sort of standing. It's not an issue of standing that we spoke about. You're not supposed to stand. No, standing means stopping in place. You shouldn't be walking around saying saying it should be what's the word in English? Stationary. So ad alav. No, it means up to levecha. Meaning, I think it means Shema Yisrael. I think we pascha it means Shema Yisrael. B'chsheikah. That should be b'midah, meaning you're not moving. Kind of eilachalot. Rav says no. For hafta should not be said walking around either. For the same way he said at the beginning of the Amid that the hafta requires kavana. The same token, it should also be stationary because you need to concentrate. It goes together. Tana Rabbanan, I always go up to two dots to Tana Rabbanan. Tana Rabbanan, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Chazet Zu Kriya Shema Shem Yehuda Nasi. That was the Ikar Kriya Shema. That's the Taraisa Kriya Shema. And Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, we'll see, was very busy giving shiur. That would suffice for him to be Yitzeh. Rabbi, I didn't see that Yehuda Nasi was Mekabel Amud HaYomi. He said Kriya Shema only by Pachsi. That's what he's calling. This is calling Rav. B'shah Shema v'yoda. It's not true. You're not looking. B'shah yoda we don't put a mekabel of Shemayim. You notice in the shiur he covers his eyes for a second, and he says something. They say Kriya Shema. That's what he's doing. Okay, so that was the story. So in other words, he would come to shiur, he would pause for a minute and say Kriya Shema and continue with the shiur. And then after the shiur ends 9 o'clock, whatever, right? So now we have a shaila. Now what's a shaila? Choyze v'goymer, goymer or ain't a choyze v'goymer? It's after. Rashi says it's now after the Zman Kriya Shema. It's when everybody left. Now we're going to see in a second. But kapora amar ain't a choyze v'goymer. Does he have to say the rest of the Kriya Shema? He said the main parts. Now we're going to see that he did other things also about Kriya Shema when he was davening. Amalei bar kapara, the Rav Shimon Rebbe, bishlam l'didi, and as I say that he doesn't have to. Now I understand why he did what he did. Every day he'd give a shiur, he would throw in a sugya that has to do with Yetzias Mitzrayim. You know, the parsha of Tzitzis has to do with Yetzias Mitzrayim. They give a pshat in Tzitzis, whatever it is, right? So that's why is that to fulfill the mitzvah of Yetzias Mitzrayim in the morning. But you're going to say the whole Shema again. Lama leila dure. Why do you have to look to find a sugya? So he answers, no, it's not a kasha. It's true. He's going to say it all again, but he's going to say it after the shiur. After the shiur, it's late. He doesn't want. You really want to chatzit say it in the zman. Now, exactly what the zman means, I'm not sure. Does it mean he's saying it after the zman Kriya Shema, mamash after 9 o'clock, or does it mean you're saying it after Nate? I'm not sure. But he said, but after the zman, no, he wants to say it bizman. So he had to do both. He mentioned Yetzias Mitzrayim, then the oilam leaves the shiur, and then he says Kriya Shema again. Amar Rav Ila b'reitam Shmuel bar Marta mishmei the Rav, yeah. What happens? A person says Shema, and then he passes out. Then he falls asleep. Is he yaitza? Yeah, he's yaitza because he said the main part of Shema. This is the Shema deraisa. That's how we're coming out lalocha. The Shema. I shouldn't say that's not clear, but this is, and this Gemara is saying that's the deraisa part of Shema. Amalei Rav Nachman the Rav was similar logic that Rav Nachman had. He told his Eved, the psuka kamet tzarin. When you wake me up in the morning, you had a guy wake him up in the morning, make sure he gets the shachris. Says, make sure I get up and say the first pasuk of Shema. And then you should be mitzarim me, pour cold water on my face, pinch me, whatever you do, make sure I'm up. But once I say the Kriya Shema, you can try to, tell me to get up, but just leave me alone. I'm okay. Same thing. For the first pasuk, they were very serious. Now, by the way, in the poskim, that's a question. Well, what do you mean? I understand. They didn't say Kriya Shema. They didn't say V'hafta. What kind of religion is this? What do you mean? Right? So Torah says no. Of course they said, but they didn't have all the kavana. Maybe since it wasn't a requirement to have kavana, so they didn't have kavana. They're very makbid that they have full. They're very tired. They were learning all night or whatever it was. So they didn't always, or maybe they were ill or something. I don't know. But the kavana they were makbid on the first pasuk. Zaktik mavaiter. Another halach here. Amar Rav Yosef, Prakton lo yikra Kriya Shema. If you're lying on your back, you're not allowed to say Kriya Shema. Mikro frekti Gemara. So what do you mean? Mikro de lo mikri? But does that mean you're allowed to sleep on your back? You're never allowed to sleep. Rabbi Shimon Levi would lie it. He would curse somebody that would nagani apirkad. They would sleep on his back. You're not allowed to sleep on your back. Imri migni kimitzli shapidavi. No, there's two types of sleeping in the back. There's where you're sitting back, but you're leaning a little bit on the side. You're a little bit leaning to the side. That's shapidavi. That's okay. That's halachically acceptable, but not for Kriya Shema. Mikra. So that's the sleep. But to say Kriya Shema, avagad matzli, even though you're leaning on your back a little, you're leaning on the side slightly. It's also forbidden to say Kriya Shema. Frag the Gemara, but what about Rabbi Yochanan? It was matzli v'kari. Don't you remember Rabbi Yochanan used to do that? Rabbi Yochanan is not a raya. Shani Rabbi Yochanan about bas. Rabbi Yochanan was very heavy, and to move over, just to fully sit up was very difficult for him. I don't know, maybe he was older and weak and was heavy, so therefore this was permissible.